Hello, this is my current video for my BMGT class 3103. This is going to be addressing several different questions. The first question would be, how did the assessments that I took, which was the emotional intelligence assessment, measure my performance for success or failure, or strengths or weaknesses? It's not surprisingly, considering my line of work, I didn't find too many areas that were surprising to me. I'm well familiar with my particular set of weaknesses according to the test. So it just mostly reconfirmed it. And the reason being is I work in a ministry that caters to men that are suffering from addiction. And the goal to that is to not only serve those in the greatest need, but to also bring the gospel to them. And in that line of work, you run across all manners of different sorts of trauma and brokenness. So it is essential in my line of work to be able to connect with people on an emotional level, in a meaningful level. And so I am surrounded by a veritable cornucopia of staff who are well-versed in this area. Emotional intelligence seminars, trainings, diversity trainings, the list goes on. So they make it a priority for each employee, especially ones that are in my particular position that are dealing with direct service, to be well informed in these areas. So I've taken these types of tests before. My test came out from the emotional intelligence test was the ability to identify emotions in yourself. So self-awareness, I scored a 60 on that. And this is a happy thing to me because something that I didn't necessarily know before is mindtools.com represents that there's 5 pillars of the emotional intelligence quotient, and each one needs to be realized before the next. So the first one would be self-awareness, which would be your base foundational level. And since the emotional intelligence test rated me high in that, I find a lot of encouragement and hope in that. The ones following that are self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Looking upon these, I would say that my weakest area isn't necessarily empathy. And this is answering question B. So what factor of the styles were new to you, or what did you learn about yourself? I didn't necessarily, like I said, learn so much new about myself as was reinforce things that I've already been told in one-on-one sessions with leadership and supervisors and the like, coaching me on, including mentors as well. The one area I really struggle, like I said, is empathy. But it's not necessarily empathy that I'm struggling with, because I do feel for people that are struggling, and I do have a heart for my work, and I do genuinely care about people. The main crux of the problem is that I have a genuine inability sometimes, it would seem, to show that empathy, to be able to display that in a meaningful discourse as I'm going through conversations with gentlemen. I can be talking to a gentleman about the most traumatic things, and my heart is in tears and crying for this person, and is genuinely in touch on my inner being. But I can sometimes wound or lame the connection and the relationship that I'm developing with this individual due to my inability to display that connection via nonverbal cues, facial expressions, in tone of voice, and even verbal cues. I tend to have a tendency to know what to say, but it's the tone and the inflection with which I demonstrate it. It's an area that I've been struggling with since the beginning. I've been working on it for quite some time, and I'm getting better at it. But it certainly is one of my areas of struggle. Self-regulation. In terms of self-regulation at work, I'm wonderful with it. It's when I get home and I'm unpacking and I'm unloading all that stuff that I've gotten from work on my family. That's an area. So it's interesting to notice by saying that I regress when I get home, right? I'm stronger in most of these abilities and most of these traits while I'm in my working environment. And as my ability, or has my my endurance to deal with these critical these critical conversations and whatnot, is my endurance is war upon. I come home and I don't have much left sometimes for my family, so they tend to suffer from that. So these are some areas that I'm certainly working on. The areas, and so what resonated highly with me was the self-awareness, being strong in that, because according to the Warwick University, the self-awareness is your foundational piece, but also it is what all of your ability to make life-changing decisions and to affect meaningful change in your life are all hinged upon. This ability to know oneself, so to speak, to be self-aware. And it's interesting because it is a developed skill, right? I've walked with so many people through varying different levels of their own journey, and it's just some guys, you'll speak to them, you'll talk to them, and it's almost like they don't even know what is motivating them, where they're coming from, or why they feel the way they do, right? And so as you walk with them through that and you help teach them and help guide them, it is definitely a learned skill that one can become better at. I would say that some people probably are innately better at emotional intelligence, but it is certainly a learned skill. And it's also an essential skill. So according to startups.co, right? Just to kind of get, it's sort of a long article, but to give you the crux of the article in a nutshell, long ago, or not so long ago, depending on your view of time, industry and businesses were all built on this template that, analytical skill, technical knowledge, and experience, coupled with education, was what was going to not only make you the best candidate for the job, but would also increase your upward mobility and your max potential within any said organization. So as we go along today, and as our society indeed becomes more self-aware, the prized possessions of any good leaders and management material is indeed emotional intelligence. So the more you're able to, I'm not going to use the word motivate, I'm going to use the word inspire. The more you're able to cast vision, have a direct impact with your employees, and inspire them to essentially buy in with the overarching theme of the organization, and display this ability of emotional intelligence, the more upwardly mobile you'll be and the more successful you will be in your line of work. They do like to see some education, but what your degree in isn't so important. Your technical knowledge isn't necessarily so important, and your experience isn't necessarily so important. Of course, all these things are going to play a role, but according to sites like startups.co, the most essential ingredient that you can possess for your upward mobility and your upward success and your ability to get these jobs and to cast vision is your ability to increase your emotional intelligence. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to create a video. I chose this medium, like I said, because it was going to be very challenging to me. I've never done anything like this. Almost all my ideas and thoughts since I've started school are always put upon paper. So I'm not entirely sure how my grade is going to go with this, but I thought it would be a particularly challenging thing to do. And so I did this. And thank you for taking the time to look at my video.